What do you say? What do you know? It's the full Monty Sports Show. It is Sunday, October 17th, 2021. I am your host, Monty Perez, aka the Sports Whisperer. You can follow me on all sorts of social media on Twitter, Monty JP231, on Facebook, Monty Perez, Instagram, Monty Perez 2, and check me out on TikTok. Monty Perez 2. I got 65,000 views in just 3 weeks being on TikTok. TikTok is a little different for me. I just post videos of sporting events. I just, talk about the show and just, a live video, today's Charger game or the Green Bay Packer game and some commentary. So you definitely want to check my TikTok page out. Again, check me out on all sorts of social media. Want to thank everyone for watching the full Monty Sports Show last week. We had 35 states tune in across the country. We are growing, and that's really because of you guys. You guys have really um, spread the word out. Love having your comments in the chat room and really appreciate the effort from you guys to make this show as popular as it is. Our goal is to do this 5 days a week, and you can only do this with your help. So subscribe to the Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel and make sure you give us a thumbs up for this particular episode. Make sure you give us a thumbs up for this particular episode. We have the best guests all across the country, and this week is no exception. We are loaded in about 15 minutes. We're going to have Greg Rector, Eric Sharoff talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Look, I'm all on board with Dallas. Their offense is second in almost every category. They have a plethora of wide receivers that they could throw to. Dak Prescott is playing at a MVP-like level, and so is Ezekiel Elliott. I think Pollard really pushing him really helped him. He doesn't have to carry the ball 35 times a game. So Dallas Cowboys all in on that. And then Ryan Cooley's going to join us. Look, the Washington football team and the Kansas City Chiefs, this is a must win for both of these teams. And then at 11:45, we're going to have Bill Carroll and Jeff Barnes join us, talk about college football. There's a lot going on. My Oregon Ducks still have an outside chance to make it. I don't see it happening because Mario Cristobal coaches like it's 1950. He wants to run the ball 55 times and pass maybe 10. So, we'll get into that. And then, of course, at the top of the hour, Rico Show Me the Money Graziano. Rico has been winning people money. He has 4 winning weeks, 1 losing week betting against the spread. Again, that is 4 winning weeks, 1 losing week betting against the spread. And then, of course, we do our fantasy football contest every week. Rico and I, he's beating me 3-2. I was up 2-0, and then Rico just has taken over. He is beating me 3-2 in fantasy football. A lot of people have questions for Rico, especially his fantasy football expertise. So you definitely want to check that section out if you are a fantasy football person, which I know a lot of people are. And of course, big question we're going to talk about with Bill and Jeff is I can't remember the last time we were this far into the college football season and we weren't sure who the Heisman Trophy winner was, right? We weren't sure who the Heisman Trophy winner was. There's no clear-cut favorite at this point. There's no clear-cut favorite, and that is something we're going to get into. But first, let's start with this. Listen, a lot of people ask me all the time, Monty, what games can I play? What can I do to, win money, win prizes? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Pickup is a free play game where you make picks on all sorts of trending, breaking news stories, sports, politics, entertainment. With each correct pick, the user, meaning you guys, can accumulate points and exchange them in their exclusive marketplace for free prizes like a Fanatics gift card, CrossNet, etc. Go to www.playpickup.com. One of the questions they have, it's actually a really good question, is what's the over-under on how many games Kyrie Irving will play? What's the over-under? Is it 40? Is it none? Or is it over 40? Again, check it out, www.playpickup.com. As soon as this show is over, I am going to go and I'm going to pick all my NFL picks. Again, it's not just for sports, it's for anything. But this question that I saw on the website earlier what was just a good one. How many games will Kyrie Irving play? All right, we start each show with the good, the bad, and we're going to do the weird. It's normally the good, the bad, and the funny, but we're going to do the weird here today. All right, we're going to do with the weird here today. Let's start with the good. Okay, I'm not Tucker Carlson. I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not a political guy. I'm not here to influence people. I'm not here for clickbait to try to get people to watch their show. But I will say this. But I will say this. It is good, absolutely amazing to see fans in the stadium. Okay. Someone said to me earlier, they said, look, I don't get my news or my doctor's information or medical information from a politician or from a TV show. I get it from doctors. So I get people are going to come at me and say, oh, what about mass, whatever. But watching what's going on, I watched the bubble last year. Okay. And there was something missing. There was something missing in the NBA bubble. When you watch college football, for example, Wisconsin right here, Wisconsin right here, when they do the jump around and all the fans are going nuts, and this is probably a week too late, watching the Iowa Hawkeyes storm the field after a win, or you watch the Boston Red Sox home fans going nuts off a walk-off home run. It's good. It's good to see fans in the stadium. It's good to see fans in the stadium. If you have go YouTube Wisconsin jump around during a football game. It is 3 minutes of just utter joy. Utter joy. I love it. I love seeing fans in the station in the stadium. Again, this has not is not a political statement. I get my medical advice from doctors. I don't get it from talk show hosts. I don't get it from politicians. I'm vaccinated. Hopefully all these people here are vaccinated. I'm sure they're not. But it's lovely to see the magic back in stadiums and hopefully us getting back to semi-normal. So that's the good. Let's get to the bad. Okay, so I posted a video, right, on my thoughts on John Gruden and TikTok. And I got to tell you guys, there's something going on in America. 99% of the responses were just from angry white guys. Angry white guys. Basically telling me that this is cancel culture. No, let me be perfectly clear as I look into the camera. It's accountability culture. No one canceled John Gruden. He canceled himself by a decade of racism, sexism, misogyny. Okay. And let's just, for argument's sake, because a lot of people were coming at me, again, 99% of them just angry white guys saying he's not entitled to his opinion. And my response was, okay, let's say you're going to overlook the sexism, the misogyny, the disgusting human being he is. As a former coach, the job of a coach is to protect your players. John Gruden wanted them to get rid of concussion protocol. He didn't want to keep the players safe. And I will say this, if John Gruden is saying this via email, a work email, what's he doing in meetings? What type of people is he hiring if this is what he believes, right? Again, he wanted to get rid of concussion protocols. He didn't want any gay member, anyone who's gay, he didn't want them in the NFL. He didn't want women refs. He didn't want women executives. Let me be even more frank. John Gruden is an absolute scumbag. He's straight out of the 1950s. White men, no women, the boys club, got to be tough, no concussion protocol. John Gruden is the classic example of what we're seeing all across America, and that's people not evolving. Someone said we need to go back to the 1970s. We need to go back to the 1970s. Really? You mean the 1970s when there was no black head coaches? Think about this. Art Shell was the first official black head coach. I know there was someone in the mid 30s or 20s, but Art Shell was the first NFL black head coach, 1989. It's not that long ago. So for all you people, I say this all the time on my TikTok. By the way, that video got 10. I don't even have a lot of followers on TikTok. I just recently signed up, got 10,000 views in a day. For all you defending John Gruden, right? There's a scene from Seinfeld where someone proposes to Elaine and she's at a cockfight and Jerry's like, "Wow, you're really going to get married?" And Elaine looks at him and says, "Jerry, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm at a cockfight. What am I holding on to?" What are you holding on to here with John Gruden? He doesn't want any women refereeing or having position of power in the NFL. He doesn't want anyone who's gay. By the way, there's an openly gay member on his football team. Okay, he doesn't want concussion protocols, and he seems to be a bit of a racist. Now, people will say, "Oh, he's not a racist. He's hired black coaches." Really? There were slaves who lived in the master's house. So let's not go down that road. And I implore everyone, look at the emails. Look at what a scumbag this guy is. There's no place in our society eh, on TV or on the sideline. You're supposed to be a leader of men, okay? Not white men. Go back to whatever 1960s rock you crawled under, done with John Gruden. He got what he deserved. He got what he deserved. So that's the good, the bad. Now let's go with the strange. Of course, this always happens in Florida. Of course, this always happens in Florida. For those of you who don't know, the tiki bars, floating tiki bars here, are super popular in Florida. Now, I never understood this because where do you go to the bathroom? These are extremely popular here in Florida. These are extremely popular here in Florida. But I don't get it. Anyway, a Florida man, of course, stole a tiki bar while he was drunk. The Coast Guard had to waste their employees who could have been doing something else to arrest this guy. And do you want to know what the guy's answer was who got arrested? He said, "I always wanted to drink in a bar by myself." Dude, what? That's your explanation for stealing one of these? You always wanted to drink in a bar by yourself? I mean, come on, Florida. Every week I'm posting articles about crazy stuff going on. He stole a tiki bar because he wanted to drink alone. I'm telling you, I could spend every show. And by the way, if you guys live in Florida watching now and read something, send it to me. Hit me up on one of my social media accounts. But all you have to do is Google strange things that happen in Florida. They don't have it year by year now. They have it month by month. That's how crazy Florida is here. Okay, so that's the good, the bad, and the strange this week. Okay, we're going to break down every game in the NFL. We're going to do this in about 5 minutes before we get Greg on, before we get Ryan on, and before we get Eric on. And just to let you guys know, I am 47-20 picking games. I am 47-20 picking games. So for all you who say, "Oh, it's not that bad," it's not that hard to pick games. 47-20, pretty damn good. I have Rico doing the spread, and again, I'll explain this one last time. The reason why I do this is because there are a lot of people who watch football. They'll watch every game on Sunday, the 1 o'clock, the 4 o'clock, the 8 o'clock, and the Monday night, and they don't gamble. So I do this so you have kind of a feel to what to watch for. And it's really not a long process. I spend about 2 or 3 sentences on each game. So let's get right to it. Let's get right to it. Okay, the Indianapolis Colts against the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans have played well. Other than their blowout game where they lost 40-0 to the Bills, they've been competitive. They've been competitive. The Colts lost a heartbreaker Monday night to the Ravens, but they have won 5 out of 6 against Houston. Make it 6 out of 7. Colts win here 31-20. Colts win here 31-20. All right. Rams always worried about a West Coast team going to the East Coast, but the Rams have 400 plus yards in 3 straight games. That ties the most ever for the Rams. Think about that. Remember the fastest show on turf with Kurt Warner and all their superstars? I'll repeat that stat. The Rams have 400 plus yards in 3 straight games. That ties the most ever. Giants are without Shaquan Barkley. Daniel Jones had a concussion. Everyone keeps telling me, and I've been saying this from week one. Rico, Greg talked to Joe Judge is a good coach. Greg was like, I'm weary on him, so I give him credit for that. But everyone in that division is like, oh, Joe Judge is so good, the head coach of the Giants. No, he isn't. You are what your record is. Take the Rams here. They go to 5-1, 33-23. 33-23. Bengals 3-2. Okay, heartbreaking loss last week against my Packers, against the 0-5 Detroit Lions. I talked about this on my show Monday night. By the way, if you're not watching the Monday night show, make sure to tune in. We have Brad Ward, we have A. Marie. Brad Ward covers the Browns, A. Marie covers the Vikings. We break down every game that happened on Sunday, Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. But I'm going to bring this up now. I really think that the Bengals could win 9 or 10 games here. I really do. Joe Burrow is an absolute stud. Their wide receiving core is good. Bengals have won 6 straight against the Lions. And I'm going to say this one more time. I guess biting kneecaps, as Dan Campbell said in his first ever press conference, I guess that's not the right philosophy to go by. Dan, stop crying in your press conference after a loss and put more time into getting your team ready because you've lost every close game. And we judge coaches by wins and losses, but we also judge coaches by how they do in one possession games. Dan Campbell has been terrible. Take the Bengals here, 34-24. All right. I'm very excited about this game. The 2-3 Vikings at the 3-2 Panthers. Something's got to give here, right? Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson are a very good passing team. But Carolina is first in the NFL, only allowing 184 yards per pass. That is the fewest in the NFL. Look, Sam Darnold played his worst game last week with the Carolina Panthers, throwing 3 interceptions. And I will say this, they still don't have Christian McCaffrey. I would think about 70% of my fantasy football team in a segment right now that I'll title No One Cares About, because nobody cares about your fantasy football team. No one cares about mine, but I am all injured. I got backups upon backups. I still like Carolina here to get back on track. I'm taking Carolina 27-24. Okay, we talked about John Gruden no longer being with the Raiders. Raiders 3-2 at the 3-2 Broncos. The Raiders have won 4 or 5 against Denver. Gruden is not there. Even when they were there, I was not high on this Raider team. When they were 3-0, everyone was like, Monte, you got to have the Raiders. I'm like, no, I don't have them in my top 5. Denver had a bad loss last week. They've lost 2 in a row, right? They've lost 2 in a row. Teddy Bridgewater managing the game. Teddy Two Gloves playing well. 7 touchdowns, 1 interceptions. I'm going to surprise people here. The Raiders rally around their coach. They were better than what John Gruden put together. I'm calling for the Raiders to win this game. That's right. I'm taking the Raiders to win this game 30-27. 30-27. 2-3 Seahawks. 2-3 Seahawks. No Russell Westbrook. 2-3 Seahawks at the 2-3 Steelers. The Seattle defense has been horrible. Horrible. They have allowed 450 or more yards in 4 straight games. That is the longest in team history. Whatever happened to the Legion of Boom? This defense is terrible. Pete Carroll, I don't know what he's doing. He's a defensive-minded coach, but when he's involved in the decision-making of who to acquire, who to draft, he's whiffed. Take the Steelers here, 37-24. Take the Steelers, 37-24. And if you have any of those Pittsburgh wide receivers, start them in fantasy football. Okay, Bills and the Titans. The good news we mentioned for the Colts is they're in a terrible division with Jacksonville. The Titans are 3-2, but I don't really buy this team. I don't buy this team. The Titans are the best team in this division that has Houston, Jacksonville. So I think Indy can start to sneak up on them a little bit. Listen to this. Listen to this. In Buffalo's last 11 wins, they have defeated each team by 10 or more points. That is dominant. They have led 14 straight times at halftime. That is an NFL record. And they've won 4 straight games by 18 or more points. That is the second longest streak since 1970. You could say whatever you want about the Bills. You don't know who's running the ball. Their defense is better, but they're just They're blowing teams out at halftime, and the Titans are going to get steamrolled here. I will give the Titans a chance early because Derrick Henry, if you could just run him and control the clock, teams are going to start doing what they're doing to the Kansas City Chiefs, to the Buffalo Bills. Try to run the ball. But here's the problem. The Bills have like 8 or 9 guys on the defensive line that they rotate in. Their number one defensive lineman has played 57% of the snaps. That's it. So when Derrick Henry starts to wear you down because you're tired, they're not tired. And I don't know why more teams don't do this. More teams need to start rotating 7, 8 guys on the defensive line because of the hurry up offense. You're getting more plays. The second half, where Tennessee's going to wear you out, they're not going to wear out the Bills. Take the Bills here, 41-24. All right, again, I'm 47 and 20 picking games. 47 and 20 picking games. So there are my picks. I like to hold myself accountable for all my picks. Let's get to the comment section here, and then we'll get our guests on. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to everyone. Gina, thank you. Happy Sunday to you. Bye, John Gruden. Andrea says Gruden is a punk. I like that. I like that. Yeah. Can we really be surprised by Gruden's behavior? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We cannot be surprised. Again, people just saying good morning. I want to thank everyone for joining in the comments. Listen, these comments really make the show fun. We interact with the guests in these comments. Keep them coming. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe and give us a thumbs up. All right, let's bring on Greg. Let's bring on Eric, and let's bring on Riley. Ryan, how you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing well.
Greg, what type of blue light do you have on? It looks like a saber.
Oh, it's just,
Vader.
whatever.
I love that, Greg.
Well,
good job. Styling. Good for you.
Whatever.
I like it. All right, let's get right to this. I have this problem. I grew up a Knicks fan, right? And it's hard for me to root for the Knicks since 2000 for one simple reason. James Dolan has had a history of sexism. He's had a history of covering up sexual assault in his upper management. He's had a history, I'm not going to say of racism with John Gruden, but James Dolan got this team as a 40th birthday present from his father. They have not been past the first round since one time since 2000, but he's just a terrible human being. So, Ryan, let's start with you. You have probably the worst owner, the worst human being in the planet. How do you root for the Washington football team when Daniel Snyder, we just saw what a disaster he is?
Well, it's not hard to root because I've done it for ever since I started watching football. When the game's on, it's just a natural instinct to root for them. So it's not hard to root for them. However, they're a lot harder to watch, and not just because they're bad, because we all know, like, my whole life they've been bad. I've never seen a successful Washington team, but the hardest part to watch is what happens off the field and Dan Snyder. And it's just frustrating to see that, every year it's something else. Every week now it seems like it's something else. And it doesn't matter who they bring in. I liked in 2020, they brought in Ron Rivera. They brought in Jason Wright, Julie Donaldson, and all of them have done great so far, even though I will say Jason Wright couldn't have botched this Sean Taylor 21 retirement.
We'll get into that in a minute. Greg was all over that right away. Thankfully,
almost made me sick. But it doesn't matter who you bring in. Like I said, those three, they've done well. But as long as you still have that cancer right in the middle of things at Dan Snyder, nothing's going to change. So it's really hard to watch them, and not just from a standpoint that they suck, but because you have an owner that just once you think you hit the lowest point, then they just start digging, and it just doesn't end.
Yeah, no, it's been terrible. But Greg, let's go to you. The same thing. You know how I feel about Jerry Jones. The old boys club.
How you feel?
Misogyny. How do you root for the Cowboys week in and week out? Because if they're successful, Jerry Jones is successful.
Unfortunately, that's the downside. Yeah. That's he puts more billions into the pocket, unfortunately. But this whole mess in Washington is just unreal. I mean, it just goes from bad to worse. You got Schefter tied into it now, and how he makes his sausage, as they say in the business.
Yeah.
You've now got the emails from the NFL chief counsel who very favorable rulings towards the Washington franchise, despite that $10 million fine they got earlier this year. This goes back a ways now, obviously, but Washington was the most protected franchise in the league,
Yeah.
and really, it this whole mess. This boils down to the simple fact that the old boys club that the NFL owners are, minus the forward and the hapless ladies in Detroit and Chicago. This whole mess boils down to the fact that the NFL better get their act together and treat him like they treated Donald Sterling in the NBA. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Good
See,
riddance. Goodbye.
Greg, you bring up a great point, and Eric, I'm going to ask you this question. One of the things that's so frustrating to me as a Knick fan up until last year, okay, and by the way, just a little programming note here. I'm not going to have an NFL article this week. Tomorrow, I'll have the Eastern Conference of the NBA for Nuts and Bolts Sports, and on Wednesday, I'll do the Western Conference NBA. And it's just a quick 1 or 2 sentence for each team. I have the Final Four and everything like that. But Eric, what bothers me so much is every year the Knicks are the most valuable franchise, win or lose. Dallas hasn't been to a Super Bowl since Troy Aikman, Eric, and every year they're the most expensive, most money-making franchise. It's almost like with going along with Greg, they're not going to treat these guys like they did Daniel Stern because the Clippers sucked and they weren't really making money. Jerry Jones is a money-making machine, so it's almost like he's above the law.
Yeah, where to begin? It's not so hard to root for the Cowboys with him as owner, but there's nuance with this, right? As it's been written, as it's been discussed, but not debated since 1993, he put his ego first and foremost and forevermore in front of the ultimate success of the team. I think he somehow knew then, like he knows now, that he can continue to out establish his team everywhere in the sports world, but the product on the field continues to lag, except for this year, right? So far, so good. But the fact that he basically told Jimmy Johnson back in 1993, hey, you give my ego space to roam.
Exactly.
You pretend to give me credit. You agree to do that, and I will overlook my 500 coaches thing, and I'll also allow you to stick around for a year. What do you say?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No.
And
terrible.
he said, to coach, sure. To endure pretend with you, no, I'm out. And you couldn't blame Jimmy Johnson. And though there are some psycho fans out there who might like to, just because in order to love the Cowboys, they've got to find a way to love Jerry. That doesn't fly. And so now you got back. Now here we are in 2021. The Cowboys look really good. The season's not over. Everyone's putting in the Super Bowl. You have to survive this season and the injuries and all that. And knowing that at the end of the year, if they win, if they make it all the way back, he's going to be front and center saying, I finally did it without Jimmy Johnson's fingerprints.
Listen, you can say whatever you want, but there's a lot of weight on Jerry Jones's shoulder, like there is with Bill Belichick, to win without Tom Brady. Right now, Tom Brady won the divorce. He won a Super Bowl last year. Right now, Jimmy Johnson won the divorce. They won a Super Bowl with Barry Switzer, but that was Jimmy Johnson's team. So, Jimmy Johnson, remember, he was making decisions back then. All right, Greg, I'm going to say something here that I never thought I would say on the air, and you're probably going to get very emotional for here. But I like this Dallas Cowboy team. And here's why. I loved C.D. Lamb out of Oklahoma. Absolutely loved him. I thought Minka Parsons, what we'll get to later, was an absolute stud of a draft pick. I rooted for Dak Prescott in college. I'm not a Mike McCarthy fan, but when you look at this Cowboy team and their offense, in second in almost every category, they're really fun to watch. And I said this on Twitter, and a lot of people gave me, you look at the top 4 teams right now in scoring, they all have elite wide receivers 2, 3, 4 deep. The Cowboys have done a tremendous job of building through the draft. They've overpaid a couple people, which I don't like. But Greg, this offense is downright scary.
Yep, it's all systems go right now. And the one thing, so I've been going back and reviewing every game, etc., keeping track of things that are a little bit different from what most people would have thought would have happened, especially on the defensive side. I mean, they're over 60% man coverage, which Dan Quinn was supposed to be this cover 3 guy.
Right.
Well, they're going plenty of man coverage. But offensively, when they're out there, teams are actually going into this cover four. Well, you go cover four and you got Pollard and Elliott. Good luck.
Yeah.
It's pick your poison time.
Well, that brings us to my next point. And this, Eric, this is not a knock on Dak. It's not. But this is the facts. When Dak throws less than 29 times, the Cowboys are 17-4. So when they're balanced and when they have Elliott running and then you bring in Pollard, when they're running the ball, they are much more effective. I said this years ago to George Lopez when Jared Goff threw 55 times and they beat Kansas City on Monday night in that shootout. I'm like, that's fool's gold. You're not going to win throwing 40 times. They need to be balanced. And people took this that I was taking a shot at Dak.
Yeah, well, you're right, but balance for the sake of balance, of course, is not going to always win you. It's about adaptability and creativity, which I think we're finally seeing over the past it's half a year, less than half a year, and last year with Kellen Moore. It seems like the restraints are completely off. And as long as he's willing to adjust, which was a dirty word when the former guy, Jason Garrett, was with the team, okay, they have to adjust. And today is the perfect game, as you all know. You got a guy who will do everything to expose your weakness and take away your greatness. And if you can't adjust, if you can't find and coax your third, fourth, and fifth options to get it done, then he wins again. And that's why, back to your comment, Dak, I don't think he'll be at all complaining about balance, as long as it's balanced for the sake of adjustment.
I will say this. When Kellen Moore first started as the offensive coordinator, the second half of games, experienced defensive coordinators took him apart. You look his rookie year doing this, his second half of games, he was one of the worst scoring teams in the NFL. He's adjusted. He keeps defenses off balance. I watch games with my dad on Sundays, and I'll be like, Dad, running here, passing here. I almost guess seven. I know I have a 50% chance, but there are times where I'm like, oh, Dallas is going to run here because of their formations, and they throw it. He has confused defensive coordinators. He's grown into this position, and he's a very good offensive coordinator. And he's still young and learning. Okay, Ryan, speaking of offense here, speaking of offense, we know the Washington football team defense was supposed to be good. They've been terrible. But I got to be honest with you. Their offense is much better than I thought. I think they're 12th in scoring. Their defense is terrible, giving up, 415 yards a game. So talk about the offense, how it's been better than you thought, and the defense is worse.
Yeah, the offense, I won't say they're great or anything, but you also got to remember the defense is giving up, feels like 40 points a game. So the offense is going to have quite a bit of room to score a lot of points and put up a lot of yards. And I think this is really the biggest credit I would give is Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver. He's playing phenomenal this year. And the offensive line is a lot better than people thought. I wasn't a big fan. They were really good last year, the offensive line. And Ron Rivera in that front office seemed really pressed on revamping it, which I didn't know why. They replaced 3 starters of the 5 on the offensive line. I didn't think it was going to work out. I didn't like changing it that much, but it has. So if you look, you have a really good number 1 receiver in Terry McLaurin, and you have a good offensive line, and you pair that with the defenses are, they're playing back a lot. They're not, it usually feels like a blowout when Washington has the ball, especially in the second half of games. So, and also Taylor Heineke, he's kind of a lot of Washington fans love Taylor Heineke.
It's a great story. The guy was sleeping on his sister's couch. He was cut from like the summer football league. He couldn't even make that. Now he's a starting quarterback. He got a little emotional after a win. He is a great story, but he's not a starting quarterback. He's a backup.
Exactly, and that's what I've been saying. I mean, you had some Washington fans that are like, "Oh, he's a top 15 quarterback. He's a franchise quarterback." Oh, you have, and it's not like a couple people. It's like half the fan base. It's ridiculous, and it's probably because for so long we've never had even a decent quarterback. So when you give someone a little bit of hope, where Heineke, he played well against the Giants, so that's what really started all. But if you watch him, he plays really well against bad defenses. And then absolutely horrific against the good defenses. You look at the Giants, he played well in. Then they went to Buffalo, and he was just awful. Then they played Atlanta. He was all right there. And then he looked awful against the Saints. And he's going to look great this week against the Chiefs because they're the worst defense in the league. So it's kind of a roller coaster with Washington fans of him. Oh, he's a franchise quarterback. Oh, maybe not. Oh, he's a franchise. Maybe not. And it's probably going to continue today with with the Chiefs.
Okay,
defense.
but Ryan, can we say that this defense shocked a lot of us because they were dominant last year. We thought Ron Rivera's a defensive guy.
Yep.
Could the strain of what's going on every day in that locker room, is Ron Rivera losing the locker room? Because the one thing you expect from his team is their defense is going to be sound, and they had almost everyone coming back.
Yep. I think we got a little ahead of ourselves when it came to the defense last year. When they played better quarterbacks and Brady and Russell Wilson and all those, they played pretty bad. Those quarterbacks had no problems going against that defense last year. And then we're playing a first place schedule this year, so we're playing better quarterbacks and everyone's feasting. The biggest problem with the defense is a secondary, and this is something I thought was an upgrade because you had Kendall Fuller as the number one corner, then you had Ronald Darby as the number two. Darby was really good last year. Definitely bounced back after his kind of rough stint with the Eagles. And then we let him go because we didn't want to sign him to it was like 3-year, $30 million extension he signed with the Broncos. Then we signed William Jackson for, I think it's like $14.5 million. So significantly more money. And he's been atrocious. I mean, he looks like he shouldn't even be starting or even on an NFL team. He has a grade, I think it's like 48.6.
There was talks about him being benched, right?
Yeah, it's well, he's not going to be benched because we have no one else.
Right.
I mean, really, our corners are very shallow. I mean, you have Kendall Fuller, William Jackson, and St. Juste. Those are the rookie. Those are the three. Torrey McTyer was a number 4 corner. He's hurt, so we really don't have anybody else other than like practice squad players to put in.
Replace him, yeah.
Yeah, and then now the other problem is safety, Landon Collins. He's been unplayable, but he continues to play every single game, all game long, which makes no sense. And it's just frustrating, especially when you have Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio that did a good job last year. And Ron Rivera is a reputable head coach. He knows what he's doing, and he keeps putting these questionable personnel on the field. Landon Collins shouldn't be playing. John Bostic, the linebacker, he's hurt now. He's pretty much done for the year, but he was starting and playing all game. He was the worst linebacker in the league. He had a grade of like 30.2, which was the lowest graded linebacker in the league. And he continued to play. And even last year, you had Kevin Pierre-Louis was our best linebacker, and it wasn't really that close. We let him go.
Let him go, yeah.
And it's just the questionable personnel that Ron Rivera is re-signing or signing and putting on the field on Sundays. It doesn't make sense.
Okay. All right, listen, Greg, I'm not a fan of Mike McCarthy, but the hiring of Dan Quinn and this guy, Micah Parsons, people are talking about him being Defensive Rookie of the Year. Talk about the defense. What are they doing differently, and how good has this guy been?
This defense, the number one difference compared to last year is the speed that this defense comes at you with. Mike is part of that. They've had 10 guys clocked at 19 miles an hour or faster this season already. So they're using multiple personnel. They're like I said, they're over 60% of the time they've played man, which nobody saw coming with Dan Quinn being this cover 3 gurus that we kept hearing about, right?
I mean, I thought it was going to be, like you said, cover 2 zone, a little bit of man here and there, but their speed is so good, they're daring teams to beat them.
Yeah, and when you have that type of speed, you're able to neutralize a lot of things. Now, unfortunately, they're not doing it for a full 60 minutes. They get a lead and they go into this shell sort of thing, and once they hit that shell, well, here comes the passing yards. And that's the one thing that bothers me. I want 60 minutes. I don't want teams to have anything. I'm sick and tired of seeing anybody get their points in the fourth quarter like Carolina did or the Giants did. No, shut them down.
Yeah.
Let's finish these guys off.
Talking about this defense, Trayvon Diggs tied Don Bishop's 1961 record. How about I had to find a picture of the 1961 team? I think Greg went to every game that year watching this team.
Hey.
So
can
we talk
stroller.
about this? I mean, people talk about Trayvon Diggs, not a good cover guy. Listen, he's getting interceptions. He's forcing turnovers. Is he feast or famine, or he's a better cover guy than people think?
He's more than a cover guy.
Okay.
That's what people don't want to understand. He's a former wide receiver. He understands the mindset of a wide receiver.
He's been great. Eric, are you shocked at his productivity?
No, we all had to just wait until about his junior year, which was cut short by a foot injury. And then you saw on the tackles, you saw on the receptions, you saw on the closing speed. and you saw his behaviors that were like a wide receiver, like his brother Stefan. I just butchered that first name. But no, I'm not surprised. I suppose I'm surprised that he wasn't ruined in his first year by Mike Nolan. Um,
You
but
guys
he,
need, you and Greg need to let that go. You guys need to let that go. Let go of Mike Nolan.
Who?
but like any other star player on this team or any team that's up and coming and continue to improve and interception after reception every game, he has to stay healthy. And big surprise, he's got a tweaked ankle from last week, and he's going to play today, but he's under questionable status, right? And as long as he doesn't make that worse, and he can continue to kind of Everson Walls his way towards the ball,
Good,
they're going to
good
be fine.
reference. Now, let me ask you guys this question. Is there any concern that I got to give the Cowboys credit? Most of their draft picks over the last 5 or 6 years been home runs. They do. Everyone misses with draft. Bill Belichick misses a ton of draft picks. Now, with C.D. Lamb, with Pollard, with these young guys, you're going to have to pay people. We know Jerry Jones always picks one guy in the offseason, gives him a truckload of money. Greg, how are you managing this team? Who are you paying first?
Well, they did manage quite well because they got two big contracts, one at a wide receiver and one at a defensive end that they didn't restructure. So if need be, say goodbye to Marcus Lawrence or even Amari Cooper if need be, if they decide to go
Wow.
that route. But hey, that's the business. This is the business of it. You have to do these things and make those decisions, right? You've got a ton of guys on their rookie contract. By the way, this past draft, there's no team that has used more of their draft picks in more situations than the Cowboys with this draft class.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've been hitting big time on them. I mean, nobody ever thought Lamb 2 years ago would fall to 17. It was
No.
like
No.
Christmas. That was Christmas. Not only did
So
that
annoyed because I
happen,
wanted the Jets
but
to get him. I loved him out of Oklahoma.
Diggs
So
fell
annoyed.
to us at 51 that year. I
Yeah.
was just like, this is Christmas. I mean, you
Yeah.
remember how excited I was? I was
Yep.
like, are you kidding me?
You loved the C.D. Lamb pick, and I was so miserable. By the way, Eric, love the sweatshirt. Look at that, getting compliments left and right there. Little
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboy sweatshirt. All right, Ryan, let's move to you here. Has Ron Rivera said anything that Ron Rivera's a no nonsense kind of guy? Has he said anything in his press conference like, I'm tired of this BS with the front office, or it's business as usual? Because some people may say, hey, it's affecting them.
Yeah, it's got to be affecting them, especially the players. When you hear, you go on social media, that's all you see. The only thing he's really said is he knew what he signed up for, and he knew this was going to be a project. So even though they keep taking steps back, he knows that they're going to get it right and all that, which I don't think they will because Dan Snyder is still the owner. But he's slugging it out. It's got to be frustrating for him. I mean, you look when he signed on. It was before the sexual harassment things. It was before the name change. It was before 2 players got arrested. So I was like, well, I didn't even think he was going to make it to the first season but when the season started, because I thought
talk about
after all that
you walk into a situation
Yeah.
and it's a fire. You're putting out fires left and right on day one.
Yep.
I've got some good news for Ryan this week, though.
Oh, God.
Historically speaking, the Rams offense way back when, the greatest show on turf, 7 yards per play. Best in the NFL's history. The Kansas City Chiefs defense is now giving up 7.1 yards per play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun, right?
I think it's
Now,
Greg,
how's that for being nice to somebody who cheers for that other
Greg, and
franchise?
thanks for taking over as a co-host of the show, because my next question is, Ryan, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think the one thing I'm worried about is I think Tyreek Hill's going to go off because your defensive backfield are just practice squad players, like you said. Break this game down for us. Give us a prediction. Who wins, why, and what's the score? And can you see, after you break it down, can you see if they don't make the playoffs and they go 5-12, 6-11, Ron Rivera says, I'm out? And can you blame him for leaving?
Well, I'll answer that question first. No, I don't see him leaving. He's not a guy that I would think quits on a team, so I don't see him leaving. He probably wishes he could, but I don't think he'll let himself do that. But for the Chiefs game, first, I don't think we're going to win, and I would be surprised if it's close. I do think it's going to be high scoring. If it's not high scoring and Washington doesn't put up a lot of points, I think you got to consider a change at quarterback, maybe Kyle Allen coming back. from injury. Ryan
Didn't
Fitzpatrick.
Kyle Allen have limited success a couple years ago at coming into play?
Carolina.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's pretty much in the same territory as Taylor Heineke, in my opinion.
Right.
He's kind of a high-end backup. So if Taylor Heineke's not working, might as well throw out there Kyle Allen, see what he can do. The season's pretty much lost at this point, in my opinion. But for the offense, if they can't put up a lot of points against this defense, that's going to be very concerning. Defensively, they're not going to stop the Chiefs. I mean, every quarterback, Patrick Mahomes hasn't been great this year. The offense hasn't been as dominant, but have no fear. Every time you play the Washington football team, your quarterback and offense, they figure it out that game. You look at Matt Ryan, was really bad the first 2 games, and then he played Washington. He's got back on track to being a pretty good quarterback. So defensively, they're not going to stop the Chiefs' offense. The only thing to possibly slow them down is you're going to need that defensive line to play their best game, and all 4 of them: Sweat, Young, Payne, and Jonathan Allen, all of them. Because if you don't get everybody, Patrick Mahomes is going to rush out that side of that pocket. The corners aren't going to be able to cover for 3 or 4 seconds, and God forbid Patrick Mahomes buys them even more time. I don't even know what's going to happen, but yeah, they're not going to stop this offense. Hopefully, you can slow it down with the pass rush a little bit.
So Ryan, what's the ceiling for this team? What do you expect? What did you expect coming in, and are you disappointed? Because I thought they'd be able to win 8 or 9 games, and I didn't think. I'm shocked at how good the Cowboys are. So I thought it would be a very competitive division between them two.
Yeah, you don't want to know what my expectations were. That I honestly thought almost double-digit wins. I figured if that defense can stay somewhat, top 5 at worst, top 10, maybe at 7 or 8. And I felt the offense was improved. I felt the quarterback position was a upgrade over.
And they have good skill position players. They have a good running back. Logan's a good tight end. We're seeing you have a legitimate number 1 wide receiver. Greg has that evil grin, like I told you all. But we all thought that Washington would be better.
Yeah. No one thought that this defense was. No one thought that this defense was going to go from number 2 to 31st. I mean, that's the biggest issue. If this defense was even average, they would look a lot better. But the problem is the defense. And I think the ceiling this year is 6 wins. Would that be 6-11 now? And that's a ceiling. I think realistically, if we win 2 more games, I mean, if you look at the schedule, it's brutal.
They have Patrick Mahomes
this week, Aaron Rodgers next week. Then you have Tom Brady in 3 or 4 weeks. Then Russell Wilson's going to be back in enough time to play us, thankfully. Woohoo. It's just brutal. The only games I think are somewhat winnable, you got the Broncos, who haven't looked as good the past couple of weeks. You have the Panthers, the Raiders. Those are somewhat winnable games, but even those I wouldn't say they're favored in. So I would say realistically probably 4, maybe 5 wins. Ceiling.
I'm shocked at how bad Washington has been this year. Again, we all thought – I wasn't a big fan of Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I'm like, with those skill position players that they have, they got legitimate wide receiver, tight end, and running back. And I'm like, their defense is going to be better. Their defense has gotten worse. Wow, I'm not even a Washington football fan, but to hear you say 6 wins, that really breaks my heart. All right, Eric, let's talk about this New England defense. They can keep their team in the game. What are the keys offensively for Dallas right here? Because Bill Belichick is going to take something away.
Yeah, well, you saw how they performed against Tom Brady, and not just because it was his return. They weren't just pumped for that. They were determined. They had a mission. And the same here, as I mentioned earlier, he's going to take away your biggest weapon. He's going to expose your biggest mistake. What was the first thing he mentioned right out of the box when he had his interview like Tuesday of this week? He mentioned center Tyler Biadasz. Okay, he's going to come after him. He's going to try to blow up that line from inside out. And that means if Zeke has to stay in to block to give Dak more time, and then it's like concentric circles. You have to go from one option to the next. That's the way that's the way the Cowboys are going to be able to beat the Patriots defense. And it cannot and it should not matter, as it has over the first several weeks, which option you're going to. Dak has to be prepared to shift. He has to be allowed to roll that pocket out a little bit to buy more time. And that's the only way they're going to win and win soundly.
Do you expect this offense to score over 24 points today?
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay. All right. All right, Greg, listen, Mac Jones is on pace to throw for 4,000 yards, one of only 5 rookies who will do that. I don't know if that's true, but I look at this Patriot team. They have no skill position players. They have 2 tight ends. Their starting wide receivers will be third or fourth options. Their running backs aren't that great. And Pro Football Focus had their offensive line as third. They haven't. Are you worried at all about this offense, or you think Dallas handles them?
Dallas is going to handle them because the Patriots don't threaten you speed wise, and the Cowboys have nothing but speed on their defense. Speed kills. Um, then when you look at everything else, when you're talking about the Patriots, when they come after you, it's been Matthew Judon that's been doing a whole lot of the pressure on the outside. Well, guess what? Welcome to Mr. Tyron
Yeah,
Smith,
well, yeah,
who's
yeah,
back.
yeah.
I mean,
So,
he is back in a big way. He's grading. If you look at the grades, I mean, he's up there at second in the league type thing. That offensive line is going to punish the Patriots front seven. Pollard and Elliott will get running because the Patriots are middle of the pack in the league against the run. So if Belichick tries to take that away, then he's in real trouble today because Cooper, CD, Schultz, Noah,
yeah.
and Cedric, they'll feast. They will feast.
One thing to watch for, we've seen Mac Jones when he's forced to pass, he somehow finds a way. So what Greg talked about earlier, Dallas jumps out to a lead. You don't want to give them any momentum in the second half if they're
Wait a
up
minute.
10, 14
It's
points. And listen, Julio, I say this all the time. As a grown man, I will never wear a jersey with someone's name on my back. I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers guy. I'm a huge Marcus Mariota guy. I will never wear a jersey with another man on my back. Do you think Tom Brady wears a Sunoco T-shirt that says Steve on it, who works at Sunoco? No. So why are grown-ass men wearing adult jerseys with someone else's name on it? Andrea,
I don't want to see him in a jersey, Julio. I would just want to see him in like a hoodie like this, like
okay,
Eric has on today.
that's
Just
fine.
something that says the Dallas
Let me ask you
Cowboys.
this question.
So actually, it's Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl champions would be the ultimate one. That what
Well, let me ask you
Monty
this
would have to
question.
wear.
Eric, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Greg. Again, talking with Eric, Greg, and Ryan. We're going to get Bill Carroll and Jeff Barnes on in about 1 minute. We have 1 minute left. Tell me why the Dallas Cowboys are not a Super Bowl team. They're super fast on defense. They can win by running the ball. They're number one or two, 178 yards rushing the ball behind the Ravens. They have a plethora of wide receivers. They have a good tight end. Eric, why can't they win the Super Bowl? Because I think they can.
It's the 10 to 20 minutes per game here and there that they take a break and go, hey,
But Greg,
we got this.
okay, I agree with what you're saying, Eric. But Eric, why is this happening? And Greg's agreeing with you. Why do they have a mental lapse every game?
I can't tell you, but eventually Quinn is going to get them by the mental throat and say, just close that gap. You're doing everything else fine. Close the gap and see how far you can push this.
Okay, first of all, I am not running from this bet. If the Dallas Cowboys make the Super Bowl, the week before the Super Bowl, I will buy a Dallas Cowboy sweatshirt and I will wear it on my show, guaranteed. I don't run away from bets. So that's
That's
okay.
right.
So Greg,
That's one thing I can say about you. You will not run away from it.
I always man up when I'm wrong, and I'm wrong a lot of times. Greg,
There you go.
why is okay, Greg? You don't have to add the extra comment when I say I'm wrong. Okay, Greg, why isn't Dallas Cowboy a Super Bowl team? They are dominant on offense, and that's all you need now.
Yeah, but you still have to be able to stop the other team at key times too. Like that's the only. This is like Eric said. The one concern is the fact that they've gone into shells when they've taken leads. I and I don't like that. I hated it in the 70s with the prevent defense of Landry. Don't do this nonsense. Play 60 minutes of defense. Dominate a team. Beat the living daylights out of them.
Okay,
That's what we want. And here's where the other two factors for their defense comes in. Yes, we have 10 interceptions, but we're not forcing sacks on a quarterback. We're not getting fumbles off the running backs. Those types of things make you an elite defense. When you crush them in every aspect, that's elite.
Okay,
They're
but
still
Greg,
not
I'm
there.
going to come back with this. I'm going to say they should have beat Tampa Bay opening night. They're 5-0, and they're not playing their best football. They're the best
No,
team in the NFC right now.
Well, they are right now ahead of. I wouldn't say the best because again, that other factor that you have to come into play, defense. When you factor a defense in, it's the Rams. If you factor offenses, the Cardinals are doing pretty darn well
And the
on
Bucks are
offense.
pretty good too.
And well, we've already played them,
Right.
and we're basically
Right.
robbed a couple of different ways from Sunday, but that's all right. That happens.
All right. Well, listen, guys. Right now, Jacksonville's ahead 17-13 in Miami. I told this
Oh,
to my friend Andrea. I took the Jaguars here for no other reason than that Jacksonville has won 3 straight games. I mean, they have 3 wins in London, more than any other team. One of the reasons why the NFL keeps sending Jacksonville to London is because they do a terrible job of drawing home attendance. So it's like a home game for them. Jacksonville's up 17-13. I had Jacksonville winning this game over Miami. I don't know what's going to happen with Tua. Came back, but it doesn't look like Miami's going to be a factor this year. Okay, last question for all 3 of you guys. Ryan, who is the MVP on offense? Who's the MVP on defense for Washington?
MVP on offense is Terry McLaurin, and that's not close. He looks like a top 10 receiver this year, and that's with Curtis Samuel being out pretty much the entire season outside of one game. He's just got it all. He can get contested catches. He's a great route runner. He can do it all, and I can't wait to see once he gets, well, he probably will never, but as long as in Washington, get a decent top 15 even quarterback, he's going to put up not monster numbers. So he's the MVP on offense. On defense, it's Jonathan Allen, a defensive tackle. He has, I think, the 3rd highest grade among interior defensive linemen this season. He's played phenomenal.
I thought Curtis Samuel will be a perfect number 2 option. He hasn't stayed healthy. All right, Eric, who's the MVP on offense?
Not to say Dak Prescott.
You're not going with Zeke.
Zeke has spent he spent a third of his time staying into block and do all those other supportive things, but as they face more and stronger defenses, it's going to be more and more on Dak's shoulders to make those adjustments, regardless who he's got on the field with him.
If I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm taking away the run. I'm letting Dak beat us. Greg, who's the MVP on defense?
for the Cowboys,
Yes.
we're at Diggs. Clearly, I mean that's
You wouldn't go with Parsons?
no. Micah hasn't. Micah has done quite well, but again, when they've decided to flip him between being the edge rusher and a linebacker because of situation, etc., let him settle into a position. He's good at what he's doing, but he's not ahead of Diggs when you put up the numbers, right?
Right.
Now, I do have some really bad news about Ryan thinking that you're going to get a quarterback that's going to help your franchise this year. These guys aren't that good in this class, Ryan.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, no, they're not.
That's why I was like, okay, last year we didn't suck for the first time in how long? And
Yep.
of course, that's when there was a good quarterback class. Now we're going to suck again when there's no good quarterbacks.
I mean,
All right, guys.
that
Love
one's
having
going to
you
be
on.
bad.
We actually went a little bit late, but I don't care because you guys did a tremendous job. Eric, how can we follow and support you?
Yem Sharf on Twitter, yemsharf.com. Where I write, that's where I am.
Thanks so much. See you down the road. Love having you on. Okay, Ryan, how can we follow and support you writing for Nuts and Bolts Sports, covering the Washington football team?
Yep, on Twitter at Cooley's Takes. That's pretty much. I don't really use Instagram that much or Facebook, so just Twitter. And of course, podcast is on Spotify, iTunes, Cooley's Controversial Takes, and also on Podbean. So be sure to check me out if you kind of like Washington. Don't mind hearing my rants about Washington.
I feel for you, man, because I had them going. I had them battling for the playoffs. So you and I are in the same situation. Thanks so much for taking the time out, Greg. Love the Star Wars lightsaber microphone, the
There you
blue
go.
microphone. I love it.
I've had this baby for a couple of years. I like it.
I love it. I love it. I want to get that. Anything that draws attention, I love it. Greg, how can we follow and support you? And I have the Raptors, a little sneak preview. I have the Raptors not making the playoffs this year.
Well, of course you wouldn't have them making the playoffs, but that's okay. That's typical for you. I of course am putting them into the mix for the end of the line.
I have them at 9 right now. Possibility of making it.
Yeah. And everything there depends on what happens once Siakam and Boucher return to the lineup. Because in the preseason, I've seen all 5 preseason games. Oh my God.
Listen,
Nick Nurse has huge length, and he's
Okay.
using it. And Bradley Beal against the Raptors played 29 minutes. He went 1 for 11. Guess who was stopping him?
yeah.
The rookie,
Listen,
Scotty
one of the
Barnes.
things we saw with the Lakers, we saw with the Pistons when they won a title, just the length all over the court. All right, Greg,
Yep.
follow him on @GregCowboys. How you making out with TikTok?
Well, I'm gonna start trying that today, like we talked about. So
Okay.
a little later on today, like this afternoon, 4:25 is the Cowboys. So we'll see what
Okay.
happens.
Post a video, tag me in it, and I will comment.
Yeah.
All right, Greg,
So
thanks so much. Love having you on. All right, we're going to bring on 3 guys now. It's Rico, Show Me the Money, Graziano, it's Jeff Barnes, and it's Bill Carroll. Went a little long, but it's fine. We're going to do NFL. We're going to do college football. How you guys doing this morning?
Good. Got my coffee. I'm all right.
Well, I got to say this. You know, there are stories about Tom Brady showing up for a 1 o'clock game at 8:30. There are stories, Game 7, Kobe Bryant. The game's at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Kobe shows up at 2 o'clock. Bill Carroll, when I logged on, was back in the studio at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Bill,
Preparing,
grinding,
watching tape, crunching numbers. Yes. Yes.
I'm 9 o'clock. I'm loading pictures. I see Bill there. I'm like, what? Wow, talk about preparing. Love it. All right, let's get to some college football, and we'll throw Rico in here for NFL talk. Okay, Jeff, the big question here is if Oregon wins, okay, and they go with 1 loss, and Ohio State wins the Big Ten, which they probably should be because I'm still not sold on Michigan, and Iowa lost, which we talked about. I love Iowa's defense.
And no one pays attention to Michigan State, just plunking along without losing.
No one. So here's the question: if Oregon runs the table, they have a big test next week with UCLA. But if Oregon runs the table, are they making the Final Four? Because you cannot put Ohio State over them when they beat them head to head.
I believe they have a good chance of making the Final Four because we've seen exactly what we talked about earlier when we were on here a few weeks ago. You had all those Big Ten teams making a big push for the top 10, and now they're starting to feed on each other. We saw Iowa fall within the Big Ten. At some point, Michigan State's going to take a loss within the Big Ten. Michigan is going to take a loss within the Big Ten. It'll be Ohio State that comes out of that mix. And what you're going to look at right now is what else are you looking at? Georgia is still undefeated. Right now, they're sitting at number 1. You have Saban with 1 loss, was the biggest help to Oregon getting in, all right? Because now you have a bunch of 1-loss teams fighting for 2, 3, and 4, all right? And when you look at it, you have 2 undefeated right now, Georgia, Cincinnati, okay? Oregon's best chance is to keep winning out. They'll get the nod over Ohio State if it comes down to 3 and 4 between those two. Alabama will probably be a 3 seed. However, okay, they take that second loss. It makes it very murky for them to get in because if Ohio State continues to win out, they're playing a lot better than when they played Oregon early in the season. That's going to be a team that's trending the right way going towards
100%. 100%. By the way, not even going to argue this. Who are the best football players in the world? Lionel Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar. 100% right. Not going to even argue that.
I nailed it.
Bill, so I had all these questions that I send you guys during the week, but everything gets topsy-turvy. So here's my question. Alabama plays Georgia in the SEC championship. Alabama wins 27-24. How can you first of all, how do you not take Georgia when they lose close to Alabama and they have no losses going into that game? But I've said this all along. If you don't win your conference, Bill, you don't deserve to play for a national championship. You're going to make the argument that Georgia's going to blow out Cincinnati, so you might as well put them in there.
Well, we know already that they don't care that much because the scenario played out one year where Alabama didn't even play in the conference championship game and still made the Final Four. So they don't care about that. They don't. And they've told you as much, pretty much. So you could say what you want, Monte, but I can tell you what has happened. So your opinion is cool and everything, but I'm going to go by what has actually already happened in the past.
Rico, let me just say this. Rico's loving that because that comment right there, I'm going to post because it's like Joe saying, Monty, I don't have any facts, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
Monty is
Well,
100%
but
wrong.
I better call maybe facts. Whatever. It's history. I have history on my side. They clearly respect Georgia and Alabama. And one loss for either of them, especially to each other, is not going to hurt.
But
Now,
come on, Bill.
in their mind, it builds the case.
Okay, but how do you put a team in the playoffs when they didn't even win their conference championship? What are we
Because
doing
they
here?
don't care, Monty. It's a very simple answer.
Jeff, look, let me say this. I think that if Georgia, I said this to you, if Georgia or Alabama play Iowa, no disrespect to Kurt Ferenz, and a neutral site, they're favored by 10 points. And I'm getting that. But if Oregon wins the Pac-12, Ohio State wins the Big Ten, they have one loss. Cincinnati goes undefeated. How are you putting Georgia in the finals, assuming they lose to Alabama, Jeff? How are you doing that?
Listen, when they had the ranking systems for a national championship, we changed it to the BCS because they didn't believe it didn't work. It didn't make sense to the common man. They got rid of the BCS, the computers, because it didn't make sense to the common man. Well, guess what? The college football playoff doesn't make sense to the common man. That's why they want to expand it. That's why they want to make all these changes to it. It doesn't make sense to you and me, but it makes sense to the people that pick it. Okay? And for them, they believe the SEC is the almighty conference of them all. Okay, so a one-loss SEC team is better than any other conference to them, and that's always how it is. So when you get that team that's Georgia, you get that team that's Alabama, they may take a loss, but when they weigh that loss compared to somebody else's loss in the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the Big 12, they look at it worse than anything else. They're going to say that, well, the SEC is the most competitive, and it's just as top-heavy as all the other big conferences.
But can we say this as Rico looks miserable on camera right now for some reason? Can we just say this? There's no SEC bias. They're the better teams, right? You look at the draft picks over the last 10 years, first and second round, LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Arkansas. There's no SEC bias. It's just a better conference. It's the best conference in the world.
The better term is focus. I wouldn't say it's bias, but the surest focus.
Yeah,
the focus is real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you look at the draft picks, you got to count how many of those guys actually stick. All right. So we talk about guys that get drafted from those conferences in the middle and late rounds. A lot of those guys don't stick. They last. They get kicked around a few years, but it was because they played in that conference, because it was so revered that those guys get those chances.
100%. All right, Rico. Steelers won last week. I will say this. Okay, if you told me that they were 3-3 at the bye, I'd be like, okay, they got a shot. Big Ben looked a little bit better against a bad Denver Bronco team. What's the talk? By the way, if you have the Steelers wide receivers this week, you got to take them, because Seattle has given up 400 or more yards in 4 straight games, the worst they've ever been. Rico, what's the mindset of the Pittsburgh Steelers right now?
Well, the mindset of me and 2 of my friends I was talking to yesterday is that when you said that they're going to run up the score, we were like, it's going to be a 6-3 game.
You do realize, hold on.
It being a big blowout, that it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm like,
Rico, you
10-3.
do realize I'm 47-20 picking games, and I started off horrible.
You are crushing it this year. I'll give it to you.
I crushed it last year.
I'm shocked by how well you're doing.
Why are you shocked? Every year I'm over 72%. This year I'm going to go 80%. But getting back to the Steelers, is your mindset like, wow, we struggled, Big Ben's injury, we don't really have a running game, and we're going to be 3-3 at the break?
Well, they did half of what they were supposed to do. Their defense showed up a little bit. And their offense still struggling. At the end of the day, it's still struggling. Najee is actually carrying this team, which is something I didn't, you wanted to see him do well, but you didn't think he was going to be getting the ball 25 times a game. He's catching, he's running. They remind me a little bit of like 2 years ago when they started the season off 1-4 and made that big run without Ben, just because they got that vibe. The defense is doing what they're supposed to be doing. The offense is kind of dragging along, but they're not losing the game. which they did the last 2 weeks prior to that, is the offense lost the game more than the defense gave up the game.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
That's fair.
I mean, in Pittsburgh, we're just, like tonight's game was, I'm sure when they did the schedule, they were really excited that it was going to be a big game. They were like Pittsburgh versus Seattle, Super Bowl rematch, blah, blah, blah. And I get it. They slipped on this one for Sunday Night Football.
By the way,
I see that when they made the schedule.
2 quick points here. You said at the end of the day, so we know that's a shot. Anytime Rico says end of the day, we drink. It's happy hour somewhere. And I will say this. For everyone, even Greg, Nuts and Bolts Sports, people, when Geno Smith was making that run, when he came in for Russell Wilson, I said, Geno Smith's going to throw an interception. It's his Jets DNA. And then he threw the interception, and everyone's like, oh, it wasn't his fault. Wait a minute. There's no asterisk for an interception. If the guy runs a wrong route, if there's a pass interference, Geno threw an interception, he will play well for 2 or 3 quarters, and then he'll fumble the ball, he'll get a sack, he'll turn the ball over. This is probably the easiest game in the week to pick.
I'm impressed with the fact that he's still playing, because when they came in and they said Geno Smith, I said, who the heck is this Geno Smith guy? He's the guy from the Jets. I said, he's still playing? I was like, good for him, man. I mean, this guy, people can't even make the cut. This guy's still in the league.
Listen, there's a thing. If you play or coach in the NFL for 7 years, you get $70,000 for the rest of your life in pension. So one of the things coaches get fired, they'll go from being a head coach to a defensive back coach because you want that 70 grand cash money. All right. Speaking of money here.
Wow.
What are we doing, Bill? Jeff, Bill, what are we doing here? Spencer Rattler didn't play yesterday. Okay.
Yep.
It's over for him. Yeah, it's over, right? Oklahoma.
I won't go so far as to say it's over because one, injuries happen. I mean, he's one play away from being back under center. So you can't
transfer it.
Over. You can't say it's over. What I will say is the people who overhyped, for whatever reason, people overhyped the daylights out of this kid, and I never quite understood it. He was a solid, I would say even above average young quarterback that people suddenly start treating like an elite level quarterback for reasons I will never fully understand.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because the quarterback for Clemson and Spencer Rattler, we know this under their coaches. Lincoln Riley's a quarterback whisperer. He could take an average guy and make him great.
Well, he can make an average guy and make him look great, and those are two different things, right? You can buy a car kit that you can put on the chassis of like a VW Beetle and look like you have a Porsche 935. You don't actually have a Porsche 935, Monte. You have what looks like a Porsche 935. These are two different things.
But I will say, Bill, this. I had Spencer Rattler winning the Heisman Trophy. I was wrong. You had the
I didn't have that happening.
You had the Clemson quarterback winning the trophy. That's the worst offense Clemson had in 25 years. So we were both wrong.
Yes, we were both spectacularly wrong for slightly different reasons.
Listen, everybody was wrong on their Heisman picks this year. I said Rattler would win it backing into it because there would be nobody that played well enough to say this was definitively the top college football player in college
Clemson's
football this year.
Offense
and none of them are. They all look atrocious. All right, let's be realistic.
It wasn't that long ago that there was going to be a feeding frenzy for Tony Elliott, their offensive right? Well, that frenzy is also dampened by what his offense has done.
By the way,
we're going to talk at some point about USC coaching prospects. At one point, Tony Elliott was one of the names that would have been.
Not anymore.
Well, no, not anymore. Not anymore.
Rico's never happier than when I admit I'm wrong on this show. It makes his day.
It shows growth in you. It shows growth. That's why I'm so happy. It's not that you're just wrong.
I can't stand anyone in life or anyone, a broadcaster, that doesn't admit they're wrong. I have an opinion on everything. Football, basketball. I don't cover one sport. So there's going to be times where I miss. I was right on Justin Herbert, right? I was wrong on Spencer Rattler. That's how it is. All right.
Marcus Mariota.
And let's just, I want to mention one last thing. We're talking about two young men who are not even drinking age in both DJ Uiagalelei and Spencer Rattler. The idea that you're closing the books on somebody who's not drinking age is insane. Who knows what these guys will be in 1 or 2 years?
I'm not closing the book, But if you watch Williams how he played yesterday,
He's the
team
better
loves
quarterback
him.
right now.
The fans love him, and
Yeah.
he understands this offense better than Rattler did. So Rattler
It's not an understanding the offense thing. It's what they're trying to accomplish. One guy is operating the offense. The other guy is trying to prove he should be the number one draft pick.
Okay,
And
that's a good
moved
point.
on from the guy who's trying to prove he should be the number one draft pick to a guy who's just going to operate the offense. The offense operates.
So you think Spencer Rattler, it was just too much pressure for him?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. It broke
100%.
him. It broke him. It broke him.
All right, Jeff, speaking of this, I can't remember the last time we went into this week and we didn't have a clear-cut favorite for the Heisman Trophy. Again, Bill had the Clemson quarterback. I had the Oklahoma quarterback. They're both terrible. Who's the Heisman Trophy winner?
I think to me it's a 2-horse race, and it's both running backs. Kenneth Walker, Michigan State, and of course Bijan Robinson, Texas. Okay, there are not two players right now playing better than those two guys in the nation. There's a reason why Michigan State is undefeated. Those two guys are the reason. That running back is the reason. And Walker.
I'm going to throw a flag on the play real quick on my co-host from Draft Central. Blake Corum leads the entire nation in all-purpose yards per game, and Michigan's undefeated. So 3 running backs should be in the mix.
But Jeff, Texas not having the success that we thought they have may hinder him.
Yeah, but when you look at it as an individual award, all right. So, but also he is the reason why Texas was winning in all these games. It's not his fault they can't stop anybody in the second half. That's also on his coach. That was a horribly called game yesterday that they should have won against Oklahoma State. So once again, the guys that they consider the gurus of college football, when they give them a program, they always show that they're not exactly the gurus.
We're going to talk.
We're talking about Sarkisian right
Sarkisian.
there. Yes.
All right, Rico, you have friends who are Raider fans. I open up the show talking about John Gruden, what a scumbag he is. What are your Raider fans saying?
Well, I spoke to two of them, and the third one didn't get back to me. Just so if he's watching, I want him to know that he didn't get back to me. Actually, a lot of them weren't crazy about Gruden in the first place. They didn't like his kiss the ring mentality, the way he was. They were questioning his play call. I mean, overall, they were just happy that he got ousted. They didn't like the way it happened in a certain sense. Both of them kind of was like, I can get into it in the rant a little bit later, but they just they were glad that he got replaced. They didn't like the way it happened, but they were happy.
Rico, I love how you stick up for your roots. An Italian American, and they didn't like the kiss the ring approach, referring to the Godfather. So I like that, Rico.
Knock on wood if you hear me.
Can we do the cross? But I will say this, Rico. I will say this, and then we'll have these other guys comment on it. Forget about the racism, the sexism, the 10 years of emails. This wasn't a mistake where you get drunk at a bar and the camera's on you and you're grabbing some girl's ass like Urban Meyer. This is a history of what this man is all about. And I said this in the opening, and I'll repeat it because I know you probably didn't see it. Forget about the fact that he's a sexist. He appears to be a racist. He's against the LGBT community. He doesn't want women in football. He was against concussion protocols. The very job as a former coach is to protect your players, and he called Roger Goodell the P word because he wanted to implement concussion protocols. Aren't you supposed to protect your players as a coach?
Oh, yeah, 100%. You're supposed. I mean, but you know what? Here's the thing. If you told me to write a bio of this guy in my imagination of what type of person he was, it's not like it would have been far off of what he is.
100%. Great take.
Like I wasn't surprised. It was like I was like, oh, John Gruden, yeah. Just by the way he talks, the way he acts, there was nothing there that made me be like, oh my God, this is shocking. I can't believe it. So let's call it what it is. It's not like we didn't know, and it's not like they didn't have these emails 10 years ago either.
The thing is, the Washington they're under investigation. First of all, the Washington football team, an absolute joke. John Gruden was sending pictures of topless women who there was a hidden camera on them for the Washington football team. They went to the cheerleaders, and he's sending that out. Someone said to me, oh, let's check your emails. I said, never in the history of my life have I sent from a work email a racist, sexist, homophobic. Those are all the things I stand for. I believe in equality. I believe that more women should be in power. I believe in all those things. Rico, you're on mute.
Oh, Yeah, no, me neither. I haven't sent those emails. Not that I can remember anyway. I mean, well, I don't know.
Well, we
But you
should
know
see
what?
some of
Here's
your
the best.
texts,
He
Rico.
was
The
sending him to the
F-bombs are left
Raiders.
and right.
It's not like the Raiders didn't not hire him after seeing those emails.
Right. They knew.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, and I know that that's been brought up before, but, again, like, it's not like this is a surprise. But the NFL, somebody had it out for him in a sense that they had to sit in there. This is not new news. I'm sure if we know it from the outside in, everybody on the inside knew about it. I'm sure these players aren't stupid. They all felt the same way, and they all probably were like, the talk behind his back was probably all this.
I will say this too. I will say this, and then we'll get Bill and Jeff about a minute of this conversation. I will say this. If he's doing this in emails, right, what is he doing in the meetings? This is his lifestyle, right? John Gruden, it's not cancel culture. He canceled himself. What type of coach is saying sexist, racist stuff? Who's he hiring? He's hiring the same people who have those beliefs. When I hire someone who has my beliefs, who believes in inclusion, not exclusion, who believes women should get a fair shot. John Gruden didn't believe in any of these things. So for all you saying it was cancel culture, he canceled himself. You could say whatever you want, freedom of speech, but freedom of speech has consequences. I can't go to my job and write a racist email and expect not to get fired. Bill, give us about 30 seconds, then we'll hit Jeff.
Okay, so I was a graduate assistant at University of Illinois in the early 1990s, and one of the players that I got to know reasonably well ended up playing for John Gruden in Tampa Bay, and I met him, this is long before this stuff had come out, at a Black Alumni event at University of Illinois a couple of years ago, and we just talked about what he's going on with him, what he's doing in his life, and the Super Bowl team eventually comes up, and he had a lot of things to say about John Gruden, more than I can get into on this particular show, since I'm keeping this very short. But once again, not at all surprised. Disappointed, yes. Surprised, not one bit, based on what I'd heard from other people who played for him.
Yeah. Jeff?
This was common practice for John Gruden. You haven't heard about it because when you're a player in the locker room, you're doing your best to feed your family. You'll ignore a lot of things as long as you can keep your job when you're in that locker room. When you get outside the locker room, totally different. And people have spoken up about him in the past outside the locker room when they've gotten out of the NFL. However, plain and simple, it's the first time you're actually seeing it for yourself. And it's a good thing that you are, because now it confirms what a lot of people have said about him for years.
Yeah, listen, Keyshawn Johnson was right on the money when he said years ago, this guy's a snake oil salesman. Okay, let's move on. Bill, one of the things that really bothers me, and people always say this to me with college football, is that, there's no parity anymore. There's no parity. When my last year coaching, my team in college went 26-4. Okay, we made it to the Elite Eight. And we didn't win Coach of the Year as a staff because they said, oh, you had the players. And my thought was, we got the players because I outworked you. I out-recruited you. So why is it so many people say, oh, I'm so sick of seeing Alabama. I'm so sick of seeing Nick Saban, and they root for him to lose. We live in a society where we want people to be successful. Why do people hate on LeBron James, Steph Curry? Why are they hating on Nick Saban when he should be rewarded for what he's done?
Oh, he's been rewarded for what he's done. I see where he lives. So I'm not about to get all in my feelings about Nick Saban. He's just fine, Monte. So those novenas and Hail Marys, direct to someone else. So it's part of it is who roots for the empire, right, to win against the rebels. Like who?
Well, I root for the Red Sox against the Yankees. I know that make Rico mad, but I always root for the Red Sox.
So to me, it's this. People like when things change. And also, when people say parody, when was this parody they're talking of? Oh, when Paul Bear Bryant and Joe Paterno were
exactly
for college football? Are you talking about when Notre Dame was an unstoppable killing machine, when Army was crushing everything in its path? There's always been dominant programs. Darrell K. Royal at Texas, right? A couple of them at Oklahoma, right? They had a couple of total juggernaut dynasties at Oklahoma. Nebraska, even at one point, we talked about
Osborne,
right? And Devaney before him. there's always been dominant programs. I can go back to Biggie Munn. I can go back to Duffy Daugherty. I can go back to Hurry Up Yost. How far back do you want to go, right? There's always been dominant programs, right? The only thing that's different now
in awe right now, by the way.
The only thing that's different now
knowledge
is
his knowledge is shocking. He's throwing out names and dynasties. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember that one. I remember that one. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm old. I remember.
Right.
That
Yes. Right. Yeah. And of course, Miami had a couple of nice runs, but not that you can tell from what Miami fans are acting about now about the U. The point I'm making though is there hasn't been a time when there was parity ever. That's the first thing. That's a hope. That's a wish.
There's never been parity in college football.
Never, and never will be. But right now is probably as close as ever. I mean, so the people who are whining about parity, they would have really hated the 1920s. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea what you're talking about if you think it was better in the good old days. No, it was worse.
You could go back to Penn State and Joe Paterno.
Well, I mean, Daryl K. Royal would have 150 kids on his team. 150 kids good enough to play, but they couldn't, right? I'm just pointing out that things have changed. In the old days, Texas had 150 total killers on their team, and their practices were so brutal because they could just replace anybody. Oh, you got hurt, big deal, like 15 guys as good as you, right? The football has changed in a lot of good ways, frankly, because there's more parity now than ever before. The transfer portal has helped. The scholarship limits have helped. And more teams getting on television is probably the single biggest change.
Every conference has their own network now.
Right. A kid can say, hey, I can go to Boise State and my parents can still see me, even if I'm from California or Texas or Florida.
Right.
That used to be true 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
By the
way, you went to Boise 30 years ago, that was it.
Yeah. Which, by the way, it still amazes me why Hawaii doesn't have a better football or basketball team, because I know a guy from my high school who went to Arizona and he failed out 2 or 3 times, had to go back because it was so beautiful. How Hawaii doesn't get national recruits? I mean, Arizona gets great recruits just because you walk on the campus. Every woman is 5'11", beautiful. The weather's always gorgeous, which goes to my next point, Jeff, is why I don't understand how they keep winning, because it's cold, it's hard to get into, but Notre Dame still has a chance to play for a national championship.
No, they don't.
Jeff,
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Jeff, who are they going to lose to? They're not going to lose to USC. They're not going to lose to Virginia. They're not going to lose to Stanford, who lost last night. Who are they losing to?
Can Notre Dame consistently score? That's the problem. All right, that's the reason why they have one loss now. They can't consistently score. They are changing out quarterbacks like Tic Tacs. All right, they just do not have the answer at quarterback. The best thing they have are young guys who are unknown with a lot of potential. Okay, but right now they're struggling to score points. When you're struggling to score points, good luck to you every week in college football. There's an upset brewing on that schedule somewhere.
Who are they losing
I'm gonna call it. Everyone's saying they're not going to lose to USC. Watch for Drake London to go nuts on them. Everyone likes to just assume that they're going to beat USC just because they are a better team. Yes, but are there some matchups that aren't great for them? This is a game more than ever is about matchups. You're not playing 11 on 11 really all the time. Okay. If you have one guy who's weak and another guy is dominant at one position, it splits the entire tilt of the game.
100%. But I'm going to say this, and this is why I keep arguing with Notre Dame fans. You better hope that they don't run the table, because they're going to get smoked if they go 11-1 and they go into the Final Four. They're going to get reamed by Alabama, Georgia.
But they're not going to get in. They're not going to get in
because think they're going to lose.
Even if they run the table. All right, let's say they do run the table. They're not putting them in over Ohio State. They're not putting them in over a one-loss Alabama. They're not putting them in over a one-loss Georgia. They're not putting them in over an undefeated Cincinnati. So that's 4 teams right there. Their best bet was to go undefeated.
Oklahoma State is undefeated. They can't get in over them either.
No. Why is it that every douchebag on the planet is having success? Mike Gundy is an absolute QAnon, AON, racist, and this guy's winning. Oh, it drives me crazy.
Well, because he's a heck of a football coach. Every great football coach is a great person, Monte.
That's a good point. All right, Rico, let's switch gears here now, and these guys can jump in. You have 4 winning weeks betting against the spread, 1 losing week. You're doing tremendous after starting 0-1. 4-1 Packers at the 3-2 Bears. The Packers' backup running back Williams is now out because of COVID. Aaron Rodgers always finds a way to win. It's a 5-point spread, Rico. That's a little lot for a divisional game.
Yeah, the Packers are just clearly a better team. I feel like it's almost a trap bet to where I want to go Chicago, like, because even like last week I just did the opposite on Monday Night Football. I took the Colts and the over, and everybody thought I was crazy, and I'm like, it's too easy. The bet is too easy, right? This bet feels too easy for me in the sense that I'm like, but I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to stick with the pack.
So you're going against the grain.
I'm going against the grain. I don't see Fields. I don't see him. I just the offense is sluggish in Chicago. I just don't see them perform. I mean, I don't see them outperforming by 5 points, staying within 5 points.
Can I just say one thing? So there's a lot of prop bets that people do, right? I don't understand. Vegas just knows everything. Tom Brady, the over-under for him rushing was 1 yard. He rushed for 3 yards to start the game. Then he took a knee, got sacked, and he had 0.5 rushing yards. Vegas had it at 1 rushing yard. Rico, how do they know this crap?
I really truly believe they have somebody who sees the future who lives in Las Vegas. Like, if you could see the future, right, where would you go? Las Vegas. And I think they got like some genie in a room because they are so perfect with everything. Like, even like the trap betting, like. How
Rico, the Eagles were 5.5.
How could you not bet the Ravens in the under last week? How could you not bet that bet? 47 point. Like, how could you not? You'd have to be an idiot to go to Colts in the over. Which
I'm going to give you credit, Rico. You were the first person to come up with the sports Nostradamus theory.
I'm telling you, that's it. I've thought about every way of how they do it, algorithms, computers. I'm like, no, they just got a witch who lives down there. There's some old guy that they've had for 40 years. I can't figure it out. They're genius, or I don't know.
The Eagles were minus 5.5. The Bucks had the ball inside the 5-yard line with 1:30, and they sat on it, and they won by 6. So if you like, what the hell is going on? How do they know these things?
Who would have known that the Eagles were going to go for 2 when they were down 8 instead of just kicking the extra point?
Exactly. All right, look, Rico, we'll get back to you in a minute. Let's switch back. Got a couple more college football questions. Bill, who's going to be the next head coach? Rico lives out in L.A. at USC. For my money, I'm taking the Cincinnati coach, and I want him to be there.
Well, I mean, that's the smart money is on him. One, because of the relationship between Mike Bohn and Fickell, since he's hired him once before already. The only question is, one, if Fickell thinks that his opportunity at Cincinnati might actually be the superior opportunity.
It might be better. It might be better.
Right. That's the one sort of hang up, because until very recently, ask Bush Jones, right? Ask Brian Kelly, Cincinnati was what's called a stepping stone job. This is the job that gets you the job you want, right? Yeah. You impress people by winning a lot at Cincinnati. But has Luke Fickell managed to turn Cincinnati into a destination job instead of a stepping stone job? We'll see.
But we will say this: the money and the recruiting, the money he'll get from USC based on alumni alone is much more than he'll get in Cincinnati. The national exposure.
It's a different.
And the recruiting. I mean, he's done a great job recruiting in Ohio, which everyone goes to Ohio State. But the recruiting in Southern California should be much easier.
So to just give you a number, the average number of stars, and I don't know how much you care about that, but it's about 2.6 something that you get at Cincinnati. They're 2.5 star plus program, basically. Mostly 3 and 2 star recruits, but they develop players, and their players stay for 4 years. For the most part, right? So guys grow and develop, and by the time they leave, they're a very different player than the guy. I mean, I have pictures of the body of Desmond Ridder when he comes in, right? 189 pounds, right? And you look at him now, right? The kid's put on 30-something odd, 31 or something pounds of muscle. He's a completely different
Tom Brady photo when he got drafted and to Tom Brady now.
Yeah, only more so. He's a little more put together than Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. Let me tell you this right now. But the fact is that there is a patience level that they have at a place like Cincinnati that you just don't get at a place like USC. So he's got to weigh all these factors. But yes, is he the smart money? Sure. I'll give you some other guys that I think will be in the fight. James Franklin is a guy that's named in Bop.
Yeah.
And once again, really good recruiter. Player development, maybe a notch below a guy like Fickle, because a lot of the guys are sort of the same guy that they leave when they come in sometimes.
100%.
But he's used to being at a, top drawer or flagship or whatever program. He knows how to handle the bright lights, that kind of stuff. A name that is just getting to get a little more heat is now Dave Clawson. Now, the knock is that he's never really recruited the West Coast. He's started his career at Albany. He's been at Buffalo. He's been at Bowling Green. He's been at Wake Forest. He's never had to recruit the West Coast. That probably works against him. A guy who has recruited the West Coast and done it successfully and has a tie into the Pacific Islands is Kalani Sitake. Now, BYU coaches tended to stay forever, but we saw one coach, right, Bronco Mendenhall, leave for, of all places, UVA, which was kind of but he's had a certain amount of success. So now maybe guys don't stay at BYU for 25, 30 years anymore. Maybe Kalani Sitake looks at the things we just mentioned, the raised profile, the even greater facilities, access to, well, literally everything, and decides to make that move. Plus, he's already very familiar with recruiting the West Coast. They play also a lot of games in the Pacific time zone. He's a well-known commodity in the West Coast football community, and once again, particularly in Samoa, particularly in Hawaii. Like, he does a great job already in the Samoan and Tongan and Polynesian community of recruiting.
But wait, Bill, the thing with Dave Clawson here, 136 and 124, 46 and 45. Listen,
he's a great coach.
He's making $2.1 million at Wake Forest, which you don't
Yes.
think is a football school. So it's not like he's hurting for money. Wake Forest paid, and they're getting their investment back because he's finally turning that program around. You think of Wake Forest, you don't think football.
Right. Well, hopefully that will change if he keeps winning. I mean, they lost their best player, and they're undefeated, right? I mean, what does that tell you? When you lose a guy like Kenneth Walker III, and you're just all along like nothing happened.
All right, Bill, so put the money in it. By the way, Rico has a crush on you, Bill. I can just tell with your sports knowledge. All he is laughing at every one of your knowledge.
It moved from Jeff to Bill, because I used to always be like, I used to love listening to Jeff. Now I'm like, man, Bill is like, he's like my Levi almost. I'm like listening to him. I'm like, oh my God, he knows everything. Like, I feel like I should just get his phone number to call him just to talk about things.
All right, Jeff, one word answer here. Who's the next coach? Bill, who's the next coach at USC?
One word, gun to my head, I would say Franklin. I think that Fickle turns the job down. Just a feeling. I have no insider information or anything.
How can you turn down How can you turn down Cincinnati from Southern California? It's like watching WKRP in Cincinnati instead of like Law and Order. Like, what are you doing?
I didn't have this conversation with you. I had this conversation with somebody about Chris Peterson a few years back. How could you turn down? And he did it, right? He later goes to Washington, but he got offered the USC job and stayed at Boise. So some guys prize their sanity over the bigger, better deal.
And there's something to be said about being a big fish in a small pond.
He's the biggest fish. Yeah.
He has control. All right, Jeff. I don't know how this is possible, but they won yesterday. But this LSU team, I posted a video on TikTok. They're giving up Hail Mary plays. Their defense sucks. How is it that Ed Orgeron is going to lose his job in the next year after winning a national championship 2 years ago?
Because you can't go from a national championship to just an AS run within a year. And he did that. And what happened was they went from national championships to a middle-of-the-road SEC team within a year. And then, granted, it was a COVID season, but now here they are this year, and they're a 500 team. A couple of big wins, a couple of bad losses. Okay, so right now, you talk about a team, a program like LSU.
Jeff, let me interrupt you. I mean, what are we doing in society? Like, this is the hardest conference in the world. If I'm the number one show on YouTube this week, and then next week I'm number 10, like, what are we doing? This guy won a national championship. He beat Alabama. They went 15-0. How, as a society, 2 years later, we're saying, screw you, Ed? You're done? Come on, Jeff.
I would love for them to fire him, because now I can add his name to my USC coaching list.
Mike,
Great recruiter.
we've done this before, Monty, right? We did this in Philadelphia. The guy wins the only Super Bowl in Philadelphia Eagles history. A year later, they're talking about fire the guy. Okay? All right? This is the microwave popcorn society of America we are right now. When it comes to sports, you better win for me every year, otherwise you're gone. We will fire a coach that makes the playoffs every year because he can't get you to a Super Bowl.
There's only one Nick Saban. Dabo Swinney is not Nick Saban. And you want proof? Dabo Swinney is 8-7 against top 5 teams.
Yeah.
Great recruiter.
How hard do you think Tennessee's wishing they never got rid of Phil Fulmer?
Of
How
course.
hard they're wishing that maybe 9-3, 10-2 wasn't so bad after.
I say this all the time about Notre Dame. Listen, I'm hard on Mario Cristobal from Oregon because he wants to run the ball 55 times. He basically wants to run the wishbone. They have elite wide receivers, and every week Dye leads them in receptions. So I'm hard on him. But come on, guys. Like, what are we saying? He won a national championship. People are calling for him to get fired after a win.
Listen, you got a guy that wins 9 games a year in Michigan. They want fired for 3 years already.
Well, because he can't beat Ohio State.
But
Edgerton beat Alabama.
We're talking about 9 wins a year, going to a major bowl game. Not good enough. Not good enough. Oh no, you got to fire you. Winning is not good enough, but you have to win it all. And with LSU, they are that program where if they are not elite, you are gone. And that's exactly how they feel.
Les Miles.
It wasn't like Les Miles was stinking up the joint when they got rid of him either.
Well, Les Miles got fired for 2 reasons. One, he couldn't beat Alabama, and over like a 4-year period, LSU had more number 1 first round and second round draft picks in Alabama, and they were like, "Hey, we got Odell Beckham Jr., we got Jarvis Landry. How the hell are we losing to Alabama?"
Because Alabama was just that good.
All right,
They're
all right,
Alabama.
we go. Back to you here. We're going back and forth. My Chargers and Justin Herbert face the Ravens. This is going to be a great game. I don't know why I'm putting these pictures up. Justin Herbert is now 8-1 in his last 9 games with 2 different coaches. This dude is special. You saw him live. Break this game down. The Ravens are favored by 3, which Vegas is telling you it's a pick 'em.
Everybody I've talked to about this game, because I talked to a few of my friends about certain games and this one is one that's great. This should be a Sunday night game. I wish they were able to do the flex. I can't see Herbert. He looked great. Like I said, when I go to a football game, I watch the side. I try to see the sideline as much as I can, and just the way he carries himself. And he's a different player. He's a different player than what I thought. He's not a different player than what he's been showing. He's just different than what I thought he would be. And I know Oregon. I know you're all in love with it.
No, Justin Herbert.
Yeah, whatchamacallit? The Ravens, watching them last week, they looked good in the 4th quarter, but they were coming from behind, desperation time. They didn't look good against the Colts.
Okay, let's just
The
stop you.
Chargers are better.
Every Monday night, Brad Ward goes through this. Every Sunday, you go through this. Brad Ward's a Brown fan. As you as a Steeler fan, you don't give the Ravens any credit, and I don't know why, because Lamar Jackson is a legitimate top 5 quarterback.
Lamar Jackson, fantasy. He's fantasy gold. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's where all roads lead to fantasy football for me, and he's. He's great. I like the Chargers in this game because I think overall they're a better team. I think their defense. I think I'm going to get reamed when I say it, but the Ravens I think have an overrated defense.
Okay,
I think people think their defense is better than they are, and we just saw what the Colts were doing to them. The Colts walked up and down the field. What makes you think that the Chargers aren't going to do the same thing? What
I
makes
like
you
a
think
high-scoring game in this one?
Go through between the tackles and make catches and I don't see. People think that when a team has a letdown, because it was a letdown, they won, but it was a big letdown for the Ravens to even be in a dogfight with the Colts.
All right, give us a score here.
28-24.
All right, guys, we got about 5 minutes left, so we're going to wrap it up with Bill and Jeff. Bill, give us your top 4 in college football playoffs.
You mean as of now or when it's all said and done?
When it's all said and done.
When it's all said and done, I think it will come down to Ohio State, Oklahoma, Cincinnati, Georgia.
So you're taking Oregon out of the mix.
I'm not saying it's impossible. There's a chance, but a lot would have to happen. So here's the scenario that gets your team in. Cincinnati has to drop a game. The lower rated team in the SEC has to beat the higher rated team in the SEC and pick up another loss somewhere, right? Somewhere.
Bill, I love Georgia's defense, but my concern is, can they outscore Alabama? I don't like their offense at all.
Well, their offense is interesting because their better quarterback isn't their better offense. So the offense that would give Alabama more trouble is the less talented quarterback, Stetson Bennett, right? If J.T. Daniels is back there being a classic 5-7 step drop quarterback, that's what they want. That's what their defense is built for.
Correct.
It's that 5'10" guy who's moving around all over the place and, flinging little pop gun passes, but from where, right? Where are they coming from? That's the guy that's going to give them trouble. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and if Daniels is able to come back, if they play him, or if they even use a 2-quarterback system against Alabama. We'll see. But Georgia is the most – their defense is the only real dominant defense left in college football.
Iowa is, but they can't score.
Well, all right. And Iowa's not at the talent level. It's a extremely well-coached defense, but they don't have the talent that Georgia has in their defense. That would not be a fair fight if you were to run like a decathlon type event between those two defensive squads. They would be crushed. There's 2 guys who would finish in the top 20 on Iowa's defense, and the other 18 would be from Georgia's defense. But Georgia's an elite team on one side of the ball, and their offense can do just enough for most teams. And this is not a great Alabama defense. I want to remind people. They have a tendency just to sort of plug that into their minds. Well, Alabama's defense is good. Is it? No, not really. Oklahoma, everyone's taking shots at them because they're winning ugly or winning barely, but they're not losing. And Oklahoma State, to me, is their last real test. There's other teams they might lose to, but Oklahoma State's a really good football team. And once again, just like Michigan State, no one's talking about for some reason. Those are two teams.
Michigan State the same way. Offensively, they have a great – same thing like they're the Wisconsin team every year. They have great running backs. They can run. They win with defense. But, Jeff, I'll say this. I watch college football all day Saturday. The best team in the country right now, finally, is Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma. Give us your Final Four.
Right now, I'm looking at Georgia. Right, Georgia's number 1 right now. I think when you look at it, they're going to factor into the Final Four. Alabama's going to factor into the Final Four. I think Cincinnati runs the table, gets into the Final Four, and that last spot is going to be the one. Right, if Oklahoma can win out, right, with their change at quarterback, they will be in the Final Four.
Okay, so no Pac-10 team, and for you, Bill, no Big Ten team.
The undefeateds will bump off the 1 loss.
Yeah, but that's the problem with the Big Ten is I don't think they're going to have an undefeated team, and I think the Big 12 will.
Who's the Big Ten? Is it Michigan, Ohio State, or Michigan State?
Michigan and Michigan State are both going to take out.
So you think they're better than Ohio State?
No.
I don't think they're better than Ohio State. I think that Ohio State was a team that expected to win and didn't always take care of details. They weren't always worried about doing everything right? Now they've been slapped awake, right? And they're going to be the best team in the Big Ten from this point forward. So the question, when they now they have a championship game in the Big Ten, whoever runs up against them is going to lose, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
I think that Ohio State has the best chance to emerge when it all finally shakes out. But the fly in the ointment is if Oklahoma State runs the table, right? That's the fly in the ointment, right? Because there's teams that people don't want to see. Wake Forest hasn't lost people. What if they don't lose?
Yeah, exactly. No one cares. No one wants to see them. Listen, if you keep winning, it's hard to keep people out. Again, if Oklahoma State wins outright and they win the Big 12 championship game and they beat Oklahoma, they're undefeated. You got to put them in. Even though I don't like, Jeff Gundy with his mullet. Mullets are people too. So let's not discriminate. All right, Jeff, how can we follow and support you? And when are you guys doing another college football show?
We'll be back on another week or two with another college football show.
Can I make a suggestion? Can you not put it on at 9:45, East Coast time? Can you put it at 7, 8 o'clock so I don't have to watch it the next day and I can comment?
Right. Well, by that point, Monty's already had his Ovaltine.
Well, I got to talk. I got to talk to the bosses at Next Star Media Group to let me out early to do it. That's the problem, and Florida traffic. So
it's pretty bad, Florida traffic.
All right, Bill, Jeff, Bill, how can we follow and support you?
Yeah, so my Saturday superlatives, looking back at this past Saturday, will be dropping very, very soon on Zinni 62 Sports Media on YouTube. I'll do something for Nuts and Bolts Sports about the Heisman race. Something. I'll do something real soon for Nuts and Bolts Sports. You can find me at 11 Bravo. That's the word ELEVENBRAVO 138. Or since there's 2 Twitter feeds, no waiting. Or at capital B, capital C, ARROLL 138, also on Twitter. And I'm also going to do something for Around the Block Sports. I think I'll do something about what's happened in the world of HBCU football and sort of how that race is shaping up, and how some HBCU teams are leaving their traditional conferences to go to other non-HBCU conferences like the Big South and others, and how that's affecting HBCU football as well.
Well, I love having you guys on. Obviously, I'm a huge college football fan. Not enough shows pay attention to college football on the Sunday, so we'll have you on in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much for taking the time out. Really appreciate it.
And Monte,
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
I also wanted to mention that Inside the Film Room episodes will be coming back now that we have the coaches.
Yes.
So yes, we got the coaches film
I say
back.
this to you all the time. Post them on my page so I can retweet them.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you in a few. All right, Rico, finally, you've been here. You've been very patient. Tell me how the Browns are a 3.5 point favorite over the 5-0 Cardinals. What the hell does Vegas know that we don't know?
I have no idea, but everybody I know is betting the Cardinals, and it's just one of those things. Like, teams don't go undefeated anymore, even if they're the best team. So I don't think the line.
Nick Chubb is not playing today,
I was really
Rico.
high on the Cardinals for this game because especially with Kareem.
Nick Chubb's not playing.
Without Chubb. But I think I'm going to go with Cleveland because it doesn't make sense.
What do you mean you're going with Cleveland?
I think Cleveland at home. I think they hand the Cardinals their first loss. I think the Browns defense is better than people think. I think that they're being missed because of their running game and Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of press going to the Browns offense compared to their defense.
Okay, so you're taking the Browns, you're taking the Chargers, and you're taking the Packers. You're taking 2 road teams to cover the spread.
Yep.
And I will announce this. I am now 48-20. I had the Jags winning, and the reason why I had them winning is they've won 3 games in London. They're the only team that gets hyped up to play London. They just won 23-20. I am now 48-20 picking games. Okay, Rico, let's get to fantasy football.
I think you want to talk about Vegas. I think that spread was 3.
Was it? So it's a push.
I think it was 3. I'm almost. I bet it, so I'm not sure if it was 2.5 or 3 or.
You took Jags?
Yeah, I took the Jags.
Smart move. Smart move on your part. All right, Rico. So I get the first pick in the draft. I got to be honest with you. The first 2 weeks, I really studied what was going on. I was like, I'm going to beat Rico. Then when I went up 2-0, I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I was like, I got this. So I became complacent, something that I never do. Picking this particular fantasy football. I just got lazy, Rico, and I'm not lazy anymore because I've done my research. So I haven't picked them all year. I'm taking Patrick Mahomes against a terrible Washington. Whoa, look at that reaction.
Because I have him. That was it. Me and Levi were talking about it last night, and he's like, that's it. He's like, you're hot. He's like, you got to go all out. You can't be holding people back. I'm like, all right, I'm going to use Mahomes. I'm going to take my Mahomes.
All right, so I'm taking Mahomes. I love seeing Rico rattled right off the first pick.
Oh, God, that rattled me. I guess I'm going to have to go Lamar.
Okay. Against a good defense. Okay, and who's your running back?
Well, I'm going to have to go with Derrick Henry.
Okay, I'm looking at this is the reason why people Nick Chubb is out, right? Nick Chubb is out. So this is the reason why Kareem Hunt, who's listed as questionable, I don't know why he says he has a hurt wrist, but I'm assuming he's going to play. So this is the reason why you get Kareem Hunt. I'm taking Kareem Hunt.
He's playing great pick. Yeah, right. He's got a bad wrist. I'm only kidding. I'm doing this because I'm gonna follow my rule of thumb in a sense of like when you like somebody and you're going to watch them and you don't know who to pick, because I wasn't sure if I wanted Jonathan Taylor or Najee Harris. So I'm going to take Najee tonight.
Very good, because you know why? My next pick was Jonathan Taylor.
That's who
So
you're
I'm taking.
taking?
Yeah. So Levi told you to take Patrick Mahomes, huh?
Well, not so much. We both agreed that it's time to like stop saving the quarterback and just start going and worry about it
start
later.
going for the win. All right,
Start
I'm
going
going to
for the
take
win.
Tyreek Hill because I think he's going to have a monster game.
Well, I think it's hard. It's hard to not take Devontae Adams ever.
He's like Derrick Henry, right? You just put him in and set him.
He's
All right.
He's a set and forget, they call him.
I'm going to go with I'm either going with Cooper Kupp here or Mike Williams, who's been killing it for the Chargers. And you said that the Ravens defense is not that good. I'm going with Williams. Mike Williams here for the Chargers.
You see, I was hoping he would take Kupp because I'm so torn between him and Diggs. But Kupp's could be one of those. I'm going to have to go with steady. I'm going to have to go with somebody who's going to give me steady numbers. I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs.
You're not taking Cooper Kupp?
I can't. He can be. I feel that he can have a streaky.
All right, Rico, your tight end. You love Andrews, who finally showed up last week.
Oh, did he show up in a big way? 50 points. I mean, I was down going in one of my fantasy leagues. I had him going. I was down by like 30 points. It said
won.
It was like 98% chance of losing, and I won. And
all right, who do you got? Are you taking Andrews?
Yeah. No, I'm not going to go Andrews. I'm going to go Travis Kelce. What are you, nuts?
Okay. I think the Raiders are going to win today, so I'm taking Waller because I think he'll get a touchdown.
That's who my second choice was going to be.
Yeah, I'm taking him. All right, we're bringing this back. We got about 3 minutes left, so Rico, make this like a minute. Rico's rant. What are you ranting on?
Well, my rant is I don't want to get into the whole John Gruden thing because I know that it's been getting beaten to the ground. I just want to go into the subset of what's been happening in the NFL in the sense of not even the NFL, but everywhere, to where everybody's just sitting back waiting for the big newspaper to bust these stories, right? Like this is something that should have been down, now that it's out, everybody's like, yeah, we knew, everybody knew, but nobody was doing nothing individually as a person or as a group together. Like everybody's waiting for the big hit, the big home run to knock out these guys. It doesn't need to be that anymore. It doesn't with today's social media. And I get people don't want to lose their jobs, but you know what? There's a lot of guys that aren't on the Raiders who totally knew, who knew the type of guy he is. And, to think that he was above being what I'm saying is that it doesn't need to be the big guy. It could be the small guy. A lot of small guys can get rid of somebody like him and get him pushed out. I am not a fan of people getting their emails read in general, even if it's just, I feel like it's like somebody reading your mail, like going to your house and opening up your mail that you have in a drawer. So again, what he did was terrible. It was horrible. He got fired.
And honestly, one of the biggest problems I have with people writing books about the former president, it's like, why didn't you bring this up now? Like the guy was trying to destroy democracy and you didn't bring anything up. So you're saying basically saying the same thing. We all knew about John Gruden. Why didn't someone bring it up before this came out?
Well, I feel like there was those small rumblings, but again, like there wasn't no, he's just one of many other things that are going on that has become wrong with the whole, the whole the Rowan Farrell thing. Like everybody waiting for that guy. Everybody's waiting for the Rowan to come in and save the day and clear out the world in a sense where it doesn't need to be that anymore. We live in a different world where the small guy has a bigger voice. We together we can get rid of certain people like this and whatnot. But again, on the other side of it, I'm not a big fan of people being, I don't work for the NFL. I don't work for an organization, but I think that that you can rob a bank and be okay with it after 7 years and then turn around and have an email from 11 years ago, get you fired.
But Rico,
he works in a public position where he needs to be more, not that I've ever had emails to worry because I was never an email guy or anything like that, but
No, but I will
there's
say
something
this,
that
Rico.
doesn't sit with me well.
A lot of people on TikTok came back at me and said, "Hey, Monty, it was 11 years ago, 7 years." I was like, "No, this was 7 years of just and it's who he is, right?"
Yeah, but you know what? The Raiders knew who he was, and they still hired him, still gave him
Well,
$100 million.
that's the
He
whole.
was sending those emails to the Raiders. They were getting it before they hired him, and they still hired him. And you know what? Nobody talks about that because nobody cares. Because you know what? Owners in the NFL are untouchable. They are above the level. They are above everything that everybody talks about. Like, say what you want, cancel culture, this, that, the other thing. When you are an owner of a team, you are an untouchable person. You can say what you want. If an owner leaves, it's because they chose to leave.
Listen, let me just say this, and we'll end with this. He canceled himself by the way he is and the way he conducted himself. All right, Rico, love having you. Good luck in fantasy football. You are 4 winning weeks, 1 losing weeks.
I can't
doing
believe
great.
it again.
I'm
again,
48 and
like
20
5
picking
years.
games, Rico.
What's that?
I'm 48 and 20 picking games.
You're incredibly you're crying. I wish I was betting following you. Never mind myself. I wish I was following you.
All right, Rico, we'll see you next week. Great job by Rico Graziano. Again, Pickup is a free play game. I said this early on in the show, and I'm just going to remind you again. You want to go to this website, www.playpickup.com. You could pick anytime you pick something, whether it's the Packers, Steelers, and Bills all win. Social media, whether it's picking whether Kyrie Irving will play 40 games or more. Go to the website, www.playpickup.com. We'll see you tomorrow night, Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We break down every game in the NFL. Went a little long today, but it was definitely worth it. And in the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, in the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back.